and welcome to LLMX, the Tech Mahindra podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of the world's leading media organizations and bring you insights from the leaders that work there. Today, we have a very special guest, Alex Jackson from Sky Sports, no less. Alex, thank you very much for joining the podcast.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me. Really excited to talk to you and be a guest on the podcast.
We're really looking forward. This is the first sports focused podcast we've done, incorporating AI and cloud and media in general. So we're really super excited. But before we kick off, Alex, would you please introduce yourself and maybe talk about Sky Sports as well before we dive straight into the conversation?
Sure. So my name's Alex Jackson, senior producer on Sky Sports NFL. I've been at Sky for over 17 years now, so a lifer, I guess. I started in Sky News Ingest, recording feeds that came into Sky News. From there, I started trailing the sports desk at Sky News because I really wanted to get into sport production. From there, I got a job on one of the production teams on Sky Sports News and spent 2 years there. As a sub-editor on the production teams. From there, I moved to the cricket department in Sky Sports. I spent 5 years in the cricket department, working on live OBs as a replay coordinator, making documentaries, features, producing live studios. In 2017, I moved to the football department within Sky Sports, producing studio shows such as Goals on Sunday. And then I did 5 years as a producer on EFL, producing over 300 remote and full OBs, outside broadcasts, which was pretty full on, I'd say, because that came during COVID as well. And then a year or so ago, I moved back to what is now the cricket and NFL department. The teams merged just because the seasons dovetail quite nicely. So I produced some of the 100 in the summer, and then in the winter, I oversee the production of NFL for Sky Sports. So quite a lot of variety. I've been around Sky in lots of different areas, but I think that's given me quite a broad understanding of how different areas of production within the business operate.
Nice, excellent. So, Alex, if we go straight into talking about how cloud is being used in live sport production and the role of AI today, perhaps you could touch about some of the trends that you're seeing with cloud and live production, and maybe take us through what you're seeing.
So, yeah, obviously, I think like all media organizations, Sky has evolved and its technology has evolved through time. Certainly in my time within working in Sky Sports, if I go back 10 years, all productions were like OBs were done via satellite. So everyone would be in an OB truck in a compound on site, and all the cameras and the whole production really would be put together in a truck on site, and then the broadcast would be fed back via satellite to Sky and then kind of on past to boxers and international world feed takers all around the world, really. So the kind of real move in the last 5 or 6 years has been towards remote production. So certainly all cricket and football games where we are the host broadcaster will be produced back at Sky now rather than in car parks all around the country. So here we now have the camera circuits and the audio coming back to Sky, so a game can be produced in a gallery here rather than on site. In terms of kind of other sports that I've not worked on but I'm aware of, that certainly netball and rugby league would be two of the sports that have started using cloud technology, and the real benefit of that is that it just allows Sky to offer more sport to subscribers. It helps with it certainly helps with our capacity, because obviously the studios and the galleries here are pretty full every weekend, but we have this new platform in Sky Sports called Sky Sports Plus, which is allowing us to offer more content, more live sport to our subscribers than ever before. So, for instance, in the landmark new EFL deal, we now offer kind of over 1,000 games during the season to EFL fans, which is a significant amount of live sport, as you can imagine. And that's an app that's kind of available whether you're on the go on your mobile or whether you're at home watching on Sky Glass, Sky Stream, or on your iPad. So yeah, the technology's been evolving. Cloud technology is a part of that, and remote technology is a big part of that as well.
Interesting. And what about AI? I mean, are you guys using a lot of AI in your live production, or can you talk to some of the trends that you're seeing with AI being used?
Well, certainly, like the most beneficial example of AI that I've seen in recent times is by using the platform Otter.ai, because that has allowed us. It's really beneficial for when producers are making long form content, and people often go all around the world shooting multiple long interviews, and when you get back, you need that transcribed. And Otter AI has made that element of production significantly more efficient and streamlined. Like previously, it would kind of fall on someone on possibly a placement or a more junior member of the department to kind of chip away at transcribing an interview, and if you can't touch type, that could take a very, very long time. I'm sure it took me like half a day to transcribe an hour's worth of an interview. So now it's incredible. We can send the video file, Otter AI transcribes it pretty quickly, comes back in a Word document, and you have your work. You have really, really important transcriptions for longer form content, which are used multiple times in the editing process by producers, presenters, editors. If you rather than having to trail through all the rushes and the GVs and the interviews, it's way quicker when you know what was said at what time. So yeah, it's definitely made the production process more efficient and more user friendly.
Right. Excellent. And you did mention a while ago that you recently returned from the US after you'd gone to survey some stuff for the NFL, for the NFL coverage. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you could talk to us about some of the innovations that you're seeing, US sports coverage broadcasters taking care of, that'd be really nice.
Yeah. So I think one of the best or most eye-catching examples or uses of technology this season was by ESPN. And they've used what I can only imagine is 3D skeletal tracking data to simulate being out on the field. So Dan Orlovsky, one of the ESPN pundits, utilized VR. He had a VR headset on in the studio. I think this was the day after the Chiefs-Bills game, and he broke down a really, really critical play in the game. It's one of the biggest games in the AFC, one of the biggest games of the season so far. But by utilizing this technology, as you can see, you're taking the viewer right into the heart of the field and trying to break down a play, really taking the analysis to the next level, really. So you can see here the view that Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills quarterback, would have. He sat just behind his offensive line against the Chiefs D-line. And really, what Dan Orlovsky does a brilliant job in just explaining what he's seeing, the decision-making process, and what was a really, really critical part of the game that the Bills eventually won. So, I know VR has been used by other broadcasters, but I think, as you can see, like the quality of the image and the movement is really, really high class. And it's, what you're doing with all analysis is you're trying to explain to viewers how and why. Really, that's how and why games unfold the way they do, and how and why they are won or lost. And this technology really does take it to the next level.
Wow. Would you know who did this for the NFL, or was it like an agency, or was it like an OEM that did it, or what?
I think that the data may be I'm sure there's involvement with Next Gen Stats, who do a lot of the data in NFL. But yeah, incredible use of technology, and that's probably one of the most eye-catching examples or certainly some of my colleagues have seen this season.
And there's probably a lighter side to this as well that you were talking about a while ago. Maybe The Simpsons is what you didn't mention, I think.
Yeah. So that's something the NFL I think does really, really well in their attempt to kind of tap into the next generation of NFL fans. So we've seen alternative streams in recent years, such as I think like Nickelodeon and Toy Story, SpongeBob SquarePants. But just this last week, ESPN and Disney Plus combined to do an alternative stream of the Cowboys-Bengals game on Monday Night Football. So utilizing the characters of The Simpsons, you'd see the characters playing the role of quarterback, throwing the ball around. And yeah, really, really kind of innovative way of storytelling and trying to tap into the next generation of fans. It's something the NFL does really, really well. I know a lot of production work goes into that, into those broadcasts, and you have to commend them for what they're doing.
Excellent, true. Now, switching gears, Alex, you've been a producer of live sport for a long time, and anyone in live television knows that whatever can go wrong will and usually does go wrong. So, we'd love to hear from you some of the bigger challenges that you've had, in your career covering cricket and covering NFL. We'd love to hear some of those stories that you may have.
Well, I think the beauty of being a producer or working in live sport is you just don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's one of the challenges. I think it's one of the things I think we all enjoy the most is when you're confronted with difficult situations or situations you haven't been presented with before, and being able to adapt and still delivering a good, clean broadcast where you are kind of still hitting the editorial, getting the editorial of the show right. You're still trying to be creative and in your storytelling and the different ways that we bring the stories to viewers. But I think the challenges can be editorial potentially, or they can be via technology. So in terms of real challenges I've had editorially, I think I was producing a game in the EFL between Aston Villa and Birmingham. It was a second city derby and Sunday lunchtime, and 10 minutes into the game, Jack Grealish, one of the biggest names now in English football, was attacked by a Birmingham fan. He was punched just as they were lining up for a corner. So a situation I certainly wasn't prepared for, but I think then in the heat of the moment, you have to think about what is right, what is editorially right. Try and hand it in a sensitive way, and then before you know it, there are legal implications that you need to think about if someone's being arrested and potentially being in contempt of court. Unfortunately, we made all the key decisions that day right, which does then help you. It gives you kind of more confidence when you've come through difficult situations. I think some of the challenges that we now deal with, just because of the way technology has changed, is just we are so reliant on internet connection being stable. So, for instance, in 2015, I went to India the first year. Sky Sports had the broadcast rights to show the IPL, and we were using I think it was a mobile view unit for broadcast back then, which obviously relies on SIM cards to kind of get a signal back from wherever you are in the world to back at Sky, which is amazing technology. It means you're very, very flexible and mobile. But obviously, when you're in a stadium full of 100,000 fans at Eden Gardens, you're not going to get a signal. And we very, very quickly learned we needed our own private Ethernet dedicated Ethernet connection at every ground we went to. So I guess signal and connectivity, and that, you know, it's so crucial to a broadcast. And, you know, we face that challenge now with remote productions where all the cameras are coming back from cricket or football grounds around the country via fiber, and it all works nearly, you know, 99.9% of the time. But on the rare occasion when you do have some connectivity issues along the food chain, it can be very challenging, because you rely on this technology so much, and then you're starting to make, you know, quite big editorial decisions like, what if we don't get on-screen graphics? What if we don't get cameras coming in? You know, then do we have to kind of look at the way we tell the story and the build up of, you know, as we come on air, or do we need to make it slightly later on air time? These are all difficult challenges that you kind of don't want to walk into, but they can happen. And unfortunately, that's just part of the job, is having a plan and then having a backup plan when, you know, plan A doesn't work.
So how often in your career has it been that you've actually been let down by the tech? I can imagine quite a fair number of times, or not so much.
I don't know. I could never, honestly, like there were moments where, certainly before we go on air, that we are worried, or circuits aren't showing up correctly, or there are sync issues, or there may be audio issues. But by and large, they generally get ironed out before you get on air. So you have a call time of 2.5 to 3 hours, sometimes up to 4 hours before you go on air. And that is a very important window on any production, because there you're that is to ensure that everything works from end to end, really. So we start that process from shortly after the call time. We do a facts check or a facilities check, where traditionally the director will go through every camera, every VT machine, every microphone, check every graphic, and every kind of element of the production is checked, and any faults normally kind of get flagged quite early. And that is why that time is built into the daily schedule. So honestly, like, I can't think of any really major issues. The only one I would say I alluded to earlier was when we tried to broadcast day one of the IPL, and we didn't have an Ethernet connection, and we weren't able to provide any content from Eden Gardens, which wasn't ideal. But we learned very quickly, for every of the other 20 stadiums that we went to, that the mobile view needs its own dedicated Ethernet connection. And so those are the challenges. Those they really are the challenges. But I don't think there's been too many, and I think I've produced over 400 OBs and remote productions now. So I've been lucky, and I really hope I'm not cursing. I'm gonna have to touch wood here that my next show doesn't fall apart.
Yeah, and before we spoke, you were talking about a career-defining anecdote that you want to maybe talk about. Yeah, we'd love to hear that. I'm very keen on listening to it.
Well, one of my proudest moments, certainly before I became a producer, was, although I did nearly get in a bit of trouble from it, was in the 2015 IPL, when we were in Mumbai, and back at Sky. They were calling it a legend show, so they had Kevin Peterson and Mahela Jayawardena in the studio, and the producer of the game said to me, right, you're in Mumbai in the Wankhede, please get me a great name, a guest to join the show. So I thought, we can't get any bigger than Sachin Tendulkar. So I was fortunate enough to kind of know Ravi Shastri, because he did some work for us when we were out there. So I gave him a call and just said, look, Ravi, I know this is about the ordinary and pretty unlikely, but is there any chance we could just get Sachin just to do a quick live from the ground back to the studio at Sky in London, and he just said, "Leave it with me." And then he texted me later that night and just said, "He'll do it." He said, "He'll do it, boss. Just go and grab him after the warm-ups," because he was part of, I think, the coaching staff or with Mumbai Indians. So I was a bit nervous about that, about just going and approaching Sachin Tendulkar. So shortly after the toss, I just kind of wandered over. I didn't speak to any of the media managers because I knew if I did that, it would not happen. So I kind of nervously approached him and walked him back to the live area, and he was more than happy to do it. Then we had the slight issues where he couldn't hear the program, so we had to dial up via our mobile phone via IFB to get audio so he could hear the program and speak to Ian Ward and the guests in the studio. And then he ended up using my headphones that I was using, like, my own personal headphones for my phone. And luckily they worked, and luckily the IFB worked, and luckily the mobile view, we had Ethernet connection and it all worked. But yeah, honestly, within about 2 minutes of the live cross finishing, there was a pretty strongly worded email from someone very high up on the BCCI and the IPL, voicing his disapproval about the way we had managed to source Sachin Tendulkar. So we had to plead ignorance, and it was our first time that we'd been out there, and we were just trying to do make the best possible production. But yeah, certainly an experience I'll never forget.
That's a great story, Alex. Thanks for sharing that. And lastly, before we wrap, for all our customers out there, for any young up and coming sports producers, what would be like the top 2 or top 3, biggest like learnings that you would maybe like to impart somebody getting into this career?
Well, I think just in terms of like being a producer, like the best advice I can give is just being prepared for the unexpected, as I kind of suggested earlier. I think the key elements to it are getting the story right, like getting the editorial right. That's probably first and foremost. Being really creative with the different ways you try and tell your stories, and whether that's features, montages, or whether you're producing live shows or intervals, documentaries. You just want to be as creative as possible, really. And just, I think just generally what I always try and tell myself when I'm in a live studio environment, when things can be really, really busy and really challenging, and you're just trying to think clearly, I think I just always lean back on what's the story. Like I find that's quite a good little crutch for me to lean on. But I think, just in terms of if you're starting out in your career, I think you just have to be prepared to be patient and be prepared to be knocked back and to be prepared to be rejected, but not let it deter you. If you really have a plan, then stick to it and really, really believe in yourself and back yourself, and don't be put off. And all the setbacks are part of the journey. It's not a linear path, I know that much for sure. Like sometimes your career will plateau or go backwards, but I think just try and enjoy it. Like we're always kind of trying to look on what's next, and there is a danger you just don't appreciate the moments that you're in. So though that's quite a long-winded way of explaining of the way to get to be a producer.
Yeah, no, thanks. That encapsulated pretty well, and you're right. Expect the unexpected whenever it comes to live television. Then that's you captured that pretty well. And that's the essence of live TV. So yeah. Well, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time and your